Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Huber, joined by the usuals, Logan and John. Today's episode number 86, where we look at the newest issue of Popular Woodworking magazine, and we also discuss the worst part of woodworking. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Let's get started.
This episode of the ShopNotes Podcast is brought to you by Woodsmith Magazine. Woodsmith Magazine has been the trusted source for all your woodworking information for over 40 years. From tips and techniques to furniture projects to shop projects, you'll find it all at Woodsmith Magazine. Subscribe today at woodsmith.com.
So, as part of the normal staffing of the company here, we have people that are forced to interact with us woodworkers from time to time. And they do so with reluctance sometimes, or general grace. One of those people is Nate, who is going to be editing this episode. And he was helping out while we were filming yesterday and asked the question, what is the worst part of woodworking? And I think it was John and I talked about it with him and came up with some ideas that we'll talk about. But for him, it was because he edits a lot of our videos, and he's seen other woodworking videos, and one of the common ones is finishing. Probably because it's not really what you think of as woodworking. It's kind of like after it's done, so to speak, and it's more chemistry rather than working with wood.
Right. Yeah, it always seems that's what I know the least about. It's just kind of a hope and a prayer that it works out.
Which is funny because that mentality really bothers me, because you can take the best built project and run it with a bad finish.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Or a finish can elevate a project. So it's like, it's a make or break.
Yeah.
So I get it, but
you're that invested into the project, and then it's do or die. So,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, what I told Nate was actually the lead up to the finish is the least enjoyable part, where you're sanding and cleaning up glue squeeze out and any blemishes and kind of the fine details, because everything leading up to that, you're seeing large gains or changes and feeling that accomplishment, and then it's just a lot of kind of what should be invisible work up to that point. So it seems like you're doing a lot of work and not gaining much between the finishing the project and finishing the project. If that makes sense. But
yeah, before you get to the completion of when the project is ready to get put to use in whatever way that's going to get. Yeah, that's true. It's like the town where I live recently built a new elementary school, and it's on one of the routes that I walk my dog on. So it's been fun to see these last 2 years, the progress as it goes from tearing down the old school and building the new school. And it felt like since almost November of last year that they weren't doing anything on it, because the main structure was up, all the windows were in for the most part, and it's all the stuff that's on the inside that you can't see from the outside. It's like there's a lot of people here for what looks like very little progress. And I think that's the same with woodworking, where you get to that, like you were saying, John, the preparation to apply finish, where you're just doing all the punch list items.
Right.
That feel like they're going to end up being invisible in the finished or in the completed project, But if you don't take care of them, they will become extremely noticeable.
Right. Yeah, which is funny too, because it's like at the beginning of a project, a lot of times I'm working with like rough lumber. So it's a lot of breaking down lumber or flattening or squaring and planing and getting it just to a state of usable lumber. So that seems like a lot of work without much progress. But I find that more enjoyable. It's like going on a driving somewhere on a long vacation, where it's like we have a 10 to 20 hour drive with the kids, and on the way there you're all excited because you're going to get there, but then that same drive seems 2 to 3 times as long on the way back, because it's like ugh, we're just going home, we're just finishing this project. So yeah, getting started and doing that kind of like heavy work without much progress is a little more exciting than when you get to it down the home stretch. So it's definitely the lead up to the finish for me.
See, it's funny because, like Phil said, I mean, I would agree with you guys that that's one of the least enjoyable parts to me, is that prep up to finishing. Between glue up clamps are coming off, final fitting's done, now you got to sand it. Now you got to make sure everything's ready to apply a finish. I love finishing. I love it, like, because it's one of those like super gratifying things that you finally see what it's going to look like, right?
Yeah.
So I love that part of it. But you're right that surface prep really sucks, and it is as much. And maybe this is my own skewed opinion because I, do a lot of woodworking. That is also a make or break thing, and I've started noticing it more recently. Maybe just because I look for it more. But we recently had we were moving some furniture, and a couple, probably 10, 15 years ago, my grandpa had commissioned somebody to make him a handful of curio tables out of some pecan that we milled. And I always thought, wow, the guy that did these did a really nice job. And he did a beautiful job on them. It turned out really nice. They had cabriole legs on them. But as I started carrying them, the pigtail swirls I could see from sanding, it was like, like they're all over. Like, it wasn't just 1 or 2 spots he missed. It was a consistent scratch pattern. But it's like, oh man, it's like that's the type of stuff that really drives me nuts, that I hate taking my time to get rid of it, but I take my time to get rid of it because it drives me nuts, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I have a small dresser that I made. It was one of my early pieces from, it was shortly after I graduated from high school. And the top is clear finished maple. And it's very evident that I did not sand enough at all, because you can still see the planer chatter marks on there, and it just looks, and that you didn't really see them before then, but it was just one of those things where this is has the potential to be that much better of a project, taking a few extra steps on it. And I wonder if that's the reason why people don't like sanding. Because I was going to say that's another one, either finishing or sanding. And you often see that with articles, and I try and stop myself from writing it when you write about sanding, to make it, it's like received wisdom that we have to talk about how drudgery inducing sanding is. And I don't know that I would say that it's my favorite part of woodworking, but I don't hate it. It's kind of fun to be able to see a clean surface come out of the process.
Yeah. I've mentioned it before. I don't mind the actual process of sanding. Like, I just throw my earbuds in, I listen to an audiobook, and I just go to town. But the one thing, and I've said this before, the one thing that really changed my view on sanding, and the last time I said it, somebody commented on the podcast and said the same thing, that buying a quality sander really changed their approach to sanding. And once I bought my Mirka, it completely changed. Like, I don't dread it anymore. I still don't enjoy it, but I don't dread it anymore. Like, I would have a project just completely finished, and it'd just sit there for weeks because, like, I don't want to go sand it. I don't want to sand it. No sanding for me.
Yeah, definitely having a quality sander and sandpaper, and changing the sandpaper often.
Right.
Don't try to overuse the sandpaper. Definitely helps.
Yeah. Well, I think that I really learned that once I really started turning on how quickly you can smoke sandpaper. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, and it's not necessarily the action of sanding, at least not on the lathe. It's not the action of sanding that really destroys the sandpaper. It's the heat build up. Or if you're trying to sand something that has like a sanding sealer on it, it gums up and clogs up and stuff. And there's a point where I'm like, you know what? It's not worth trying to save this piece of sandpaper because my time is more valuable than this piece of sandpaper.
Right.
Like, I will just rip that thing off, throw a new piece on. It might have a little life left to it, but a new piece of paper gets the job done way faster.
Yeah. You know, and going back to the finishing issue, you know, you were talking, Logan, about how you enjoy the process of finishing and being able to see that piece kind of come to life, you know, because once you've have it sanded and ready for finish, you know, any of the colors in the material are pretty muted. No matter what you make it out of, it always seems to have like a dull gray or whatever look to it. But then you see that finish go on. And I wonder if, get your thoughts here, if the reason that some people don't like finishing is twofold. One, it comes towards the end of the process and people are ready to have the project complete. And two is a failure to appreciate finishing as a technique and a tool, so to speak, that you don't understand what it does or what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would throw in there that they also don't enjoy it because they're not using the right sandpaper, or they're using a quarter sheet pad sander. But
still waiting for somebody to write in and let me know why that is their preferred sanding tool. Still waiting.
Fits into corners.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
If you're trying to sand the bottom of a drawer or a flat door panel, or
because you didn't do it before you
right.
assembled.
I would say do all those things before it's assembled. You're gonna be a lot happier. But yeah, and that's another thing that I've learned too, is do some sanding as you go, so you're not fighting all the little corners and details and before assembly or some sub assemblies and whatnot, and that will help the process a lot, because the more complex it gets, the harder it is to sand.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like to think that if I was retired, and at some point in my life I hope to do so, and I wasn't in a hurry to build anything, which my wife would tell you that I'm never in a hurry to build anything, I would like to think that I would take the time to, like John said, sand as I go. But I would also like to think that I would utilize something like the drum sander a little bit more. And it could just be, changing the sandpaper on our drum sander here, I'm not going to say what brand it is, but changing the paper on our sandpaper here is a pain in the butt. It's not fun. I think if it was like one of those drum sanders that had the big drum you slid on, then it'd be like, okay, I could legitimately, sand it with like a 120 drum, a 180 drum, and a 220 or 240 drum, and have a majority of the sanding just done through there with just by on the flat surfaces.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that I would do that as I went. This may just be rose-colored glasses, and as a non-retired person, I would like to think that I would do that as I go. And I also would like to think that I would pre-finish, because it's something it's always one of those do as we say, not as we do. Like, especially if you're painting a project. Like, I don't know how many times I have built a project knowing full well that it's going to be painted, and I despise brushing. And I despise painting unless I'm spraying it. If I'm spraying it, I really like it. It's really fun to get that right viscosity, and it just sprays nice and evenly. I enjoy that. But it always ends up that I'm reaching inside of a cabinet to spray something, and I'm closing my eyes and my mouth. Well, I have a respirator. I'm closing my eyes, and because all the paint's blowing back at you and stuff. I would like to think that I would also pre-finish more.
Sure.
So some of those hard to reach areas, because let's face it, the underside of my dining room table doesn't have near the amount of finish that the top does. Enough to seal it, and hopefully keep it from cupping or anything, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this. Again, I think we've come to agreeance that finishing's not the worst part, but for some people it is. Would your view on finishing be different if we did not have the finishing room here?
I think so. I mean, it's just so easy to go in there and spray. Usually you're not mixing anything, or I don't know. It's just
we have a pressure pot always loaded with lacquer.
Yes. Ventilation, one flip of a switch, and it's ready to go. So
you're not doing anything because if anything, it's because it's Monday, so you just open up the pot, stir it a few times, and then start. But yes. However, I've brushed quite a bit of water-based finish recently, and I enjoy that process.
Okay,
but that's in hindsight, knowing that I've taken a few years recently to understand both the finish and what I'm trying to achieve in its application.
Sure.
And also being okay with investing in the tools to go along with it.
Meaning a good water-based finish brush?
Meaning a good water-based finish, because there are crappy ones out there. And meaning a good water-based finish brush. Yeah. Because I think that's the funny part is, people will spend premium dollars on a router bit. So you're looking at a router bit for a project that's $50 to $75 just for the router bit. But you get to the finish and it's like, nope, handful of foam brushes, 85 cents a piece, if that.
Yep.
And it's like, and you're wondering why the finish isn't turning out the way that you want.
Yeah. I think part of that is along with finishing, people don't know how to properly clean, get a good clean on brushes and that kind of thing. And that's the one nice thing about our finishing room is you never have any cleanup, because it's always somebody else's problem.
That's what I was going to say. The cleanup is you leave the brush in the sink and you be like, I don't know whose that is.
Yeah,
it's the next guy. Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
I'm only laughing because it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's guilty of it.
Yeah.
Or cleaning just means I'm going to find some solvent and I'm just going to set the brush in there and it'll be fine.
Yep.
It'll come
back in 2 weeks and hopefully it's not dissolved.
Right.
That is completely true. That is one part of finishing I do not enjoy, is cleaning up, because I think John's right. Or whoever said, might have been Phil, said cleaning up the brushes. Yeah, that sucks. I always feel like I use way more solvent than I need to, because I'm not a fan of water-based. I'm just not. I don't like the clear. I like the warmness that oil-based finishes give. So it means I'm generally cleaning up with mineral spirits, which is awful. I hate it. But I always am like, I just dumped $15 worth of mineral spirits to clean up my $4 brush. You know what I mean? It's like, this is stupid. But I don't know. I've started... I mean, if I'm not spraying a lacquer, I've really started to like some of the wipe-on finishes, Danish oil and stuff like that, tongue oil.
Yeah. And
then it's just rags, and then you just wad them up in a ball and put them in your trash can.
Yeah, for them to start on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Good
no,
call.
I at home I'll actually go lay them out on my burn pile. So if they do burn, it just is speeding up the process.
You wanted that anyway.
I wanted it anyways. But no, I just, to me, it's like I always have T-shirts that I'm tearing up into cloths and rags. So it's like, and that's, I guess that was the whole point of my question on, if we didn't have the finishing room, would your view on finishing be different?
Yeah.
Because in my shop, I don't spray finishes. I wipe them on. And I enjoy that process. So, but I do like idiot foolproof finishes because idiot fool, so I can do the wipe-ons easy.
Yeah. What's your preferred finish, John, if you don't use the spray booth?
Oh, I'm trying to think of like the last time I did not spray something, because even at home I've been using spray lacquer for a long time. I have a little cup gun and would just open up the garage and
Oh, really?
go out there and spray, and hopefully leaves and bugs didn't fall on it, but it always seemed to work out.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I'm always afraid to kind of go off the beaten path.
Yeah.
So that's kind of always my go-to.
Well, I will say lacquer is easy to repair too. Like, that's one of the easiest, in my opinion, to repair.
Yeah.
Because it burns into itself. If you get a drip, scrape it off with a razor blade. You know, maybe smooth it out with a little bit of lacquer thinner on a rag, and then respray, and it will disappear.
I did use what was it, Old Masters exterior finish the other day. What is that called?
Yeah.
Ascend? Is that
Yeah,
what
the
they're-
water-based one.
Exterior.
Yep,
Yep.
I did a little brush on. I was doing a little plaque for our house numbers or whatever on some cedar. So I don't use a lot of exterior finish, so really liked that. It was really easy to use and clean up, and that worked out well. So
Yeah. No, I've liked it when I've used that one as well.
so
All right, the other topic that I had for today was to talk about the latest issue of Popular Woodworking magazine. Logan has it right there.
Right here for everybody
Current
watching on
one.
the YouTubes.
Yep.
yep.
So this one, I know that transitioning from the previous editor to you results in a change of vision a little bit for the magazine.
Yep.
And this is what, your second or third issue?
This is the second issue.
And I feel like this one is where you made the biggest strides in pivoting the voice.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's still some projects. Yeah. There are still some projects floating out there that were agreed upon from previous editors here. And I'm not saying they're bad by any means. Don't take it like that. Most of them fall in line with what I'm wanting. But there will be a few over the next couple issues still that departments and projects that I probably would have passed on, or I would have requested a different spin on it or a different focus on the article. But the one thing I will say is I have started to get quite a lot of emails and letters. I got a card today in my inbox from somebody that just got this previous issue. So it's a lot of people basically saying yes. They're not weird about it like that, but they are saying, hey, these are the type of projects we want to see, the articles, techniques, stuff like that. So it's good affirmation on what I want to do with the magazine is resonating with the people that are reading the magazine. Because as much as what I think the magazine should be doesn't necessarily mean that's what people want. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what people are going to want to read. So having, people reaching out to me like Tom, and I got a couple other emails, people reaching out saying, yes, this is what this needed, this is what we wanted, is really cool and really nice to hear. I've also heard from a lot of, almost more so than readers. I've heard from a lot of former Popular Woodworking editors, which has been really cool. A lot of them reaching out saying, hey, yes, this is what it needed, and if you want us to write or you want us to build projects, let us know, which is super awesome.
Yeah.
So it's a little weird too. Like, hey, these are people I used to really enjoy reading. Now they're asking me to write. Like, this is weird. This shouldn't happen. I'm still 12 years old in my heart.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This issue is the October 2021 issue. It is number 261. Should be to almost all subscribers now. And if anybody wants to purchase said copy, I think they are available online to buy. So going through the main projects, we have a shaker-inspired sewing counter by Keenan Oren. He's a woodworker down in Kansas City. So kind of a cool, different take on a shaker-inspired sewing counter for Karen that commented on our Facebook post. I don't think her name was Karen, but I'm calling her Karen. Yes, we are very well aware that this shaker sewing counter will not support a sewing machine. The shakers didn't have sewing machines. I am so sorry. So, but Keenan did a beautiful job on it. It is in the spirit of what the shaker sewing counters were. Fairly small workstations for hand stitching, hand sewing, stuff like that. So that was in there by Keenan. We also have...
I mean, that project is essentially the shaker Kennedy tool chest for people who are sewing.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So, next one, have a hand plane by our very own Dylan Baker. It is also on the front cover. So this is a Ray Z style hand plane, which I was super happy that Dylan decided to go that route. I try not to.
It's Jay-Z's cousin, right?
Yes, it's Jay-Z's cousin, Ray Z.
Marvin Berry.
Initially, Dylan had wanted to build a like a German style horned hand plane.
Sure.
Which I don't mind. I don't like using them. And I said, hey, I have this really cool book. I don't have it with me right now. I have a really nice book from a guy by the name of Cecil Pierce. And Cecil's really well known in the like vintage bamboo fly rod world. He was a really well known fly rod maker, but he started getting into building hand planes. And his book is called 50 Years a Plane Maker and User, and it's basically his instruction guide on building hand planes. And I happen to have one of Cecil Pierce's hand planes, so I bought the book. It's been out of print. He passed away in the, I think, late 80s. but I gave it to Dylan, and he started reading it, and he really liked it. So he built this one in the style of Cecil Pierce, which was really cool. I was happy he decided to take it on that route. So the plane turned out really nicely. It is kind of a traditional style raisy jack plane. Trying to get to the article here. Somewhere in here. There it is. So, and then there's, if anybody's watching, there's the cover of the book. So, kind of a cool little project if you enjoy hand tools, if you enjoy making tools. Or if you don't, it's a good one to try because it's pretty simple. Dylan did this one out of beech and, what was the sole he chose? Was Goncalo Alves?
Sounded out.
Sounded out.
I haven't heard of it, but he did, so he bought it, and it's heavy. It's heavy and dense, is why he bought it. That was a good little project. So, then our other projects in this issue, the Dovetailed curly maple tool chest that is on the front cover.
Right.
Kind of a fun little hand tool project. If you want it to be hand tool project, doesn't have to be.
Right. That was kind of a fun one to watch in development because you've been wanting to make something like that for quite a while.
I have, yeah. And I mean, complete transparency on this. This is based on a tool chest that David Barron built out of the UK. He has one that he was using to travel around with to shows for demonstrations and stuff. This one's significantly bigger than his. His is pretty small. But I'm traveling around and going to the Woodsmith store here or other places doing demonstrations, bring my tools here into the video studio and stuff. I wanted something to put them in that I could fit almost everything. Don't get me wrong. Once that guy's loaded up, it's heavy. It is heavy. It's not something you would carry around to a job site every single day. But I had a very particular set of tools I wanted to put in it. And trying to... part of that article is kind of explaining my process on what I wanted to put in it, how I sized everything to go in it. So, yeah, that was fun. Then some of the other just kind of department-y articles. We have some hand-cut dovetails. So, kind of my steps on hand-cutting dovetails, kind of to tie in with that tool chest. Have a look at a kind of a new hand tool maker on the market, Andrew Kimmins. He is, oh gosh, I should know this because I asked him. But he's a younger guy. He's making these chisels, Andrew Kimmins chisels. He will have a website up soon if he doesn't have it up already. But he's been making them and selling these chisels on Etsy for a long time. And everybody, I kept seeing Andrew's name pop up in the hand tool group, some of the hand tool groups on Facebook and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? Like, I keep hearing about this. I'm going to call him a kid. He's my age. So, but I keep hearing about this kid. I want to see what the deal is. Like, you know, why am I hearing about this guy's chisels? But he's been making these chisels out of... He's in Ohio. But he's been making these chisels. They're now in our video studio. So you guys, if you watch on the Woodsmith Shop or any of our stuff that we do YouTube-wise or for our woodworking essentials, you might see us using them occasionally. He's making these super high-quality chisels. They're definitely priced in line with some of the big names like the Lee Nielsen chisels, the Veritas chisels, the Blue Spruce. They're along those same price lines, but they're super high quality, and I like the fact that he's a small maker.
Right.
So there's a kind of a spotlight looking at his process and kind of what makes him tick, which is kind of fun. And we also have one of our regulars is a guy by the name of Willie Sandry. Willie's in the Pacific Northwest, and Willie's kind of carved. Well, he'd probably hate me for saying this, but he's probably kind of carved his name in the arts and crafts world. So the previous issue, we had a rocking chair, an ebon rocking chair. It's a Charles Lambert, style rocking chair, but kind of a little different for Willie. We have a Jigs and Fixtures article from him, so it is Willie's take on building a circle cutting jig for your bandsaw. Does a very nice job, very high quality build, kind of a laminate top on it, doing some T-molding edging, so it looks like a circle cutting jig that you'd buy, but one that Willie has bought and made, or built and been using in his shop. And a couple of our other departments that we've been doing kind of on a regular basis is a spotlight on a woodworker that people would maybe not otherwise know. And I'm going to kind of morph this a little bit into more of a masters, like a meet the masters type thing.
Sure.
So people that are really well known maybe in a specific field that are hopefully going to start writing for the magazine kind of as an introduction. But right now, the spotlights are stuff we've published online, and we're bringing them now to our print audience, are kind of spotlights on woodworkers. Some of these might be more makers than woodworkers, but this one is a look at kind of in discussion with Alma Villalobos. She's a woodworker out of Chicago. She's kind of made her name. I don't want to say made her name because she's a talented woodworker, but she kind of became known because she was making these really cool push sticks for other content creators. So she was doing Millennium Falcon push sticks and stuff like that for all these YouTube content creators with her CNC. But she's a pretty cool woodworker. She's a mother of an 8-year-old boy, so she does some woodworking with him. So kind of just a little interview with her. And this was one that was really fun. This was one of my own takes on this guy. So there's a gentleman out in the Northeast. I want to say Maryland, Maine, Massachusetts, somewhere up there. One of those M states. His name's William Martley. Wait, they're all the same. You get to the Northeast, it's like Idaho and Iowa. Michigan. It's all the same.
Michigan, yeah.
Michigan,
Minnesota.
Yeah. Massachusetts, whatever.
All those states are so little, you just, every 15 minutes, you're in another one.
Well, that's what I mean. Except Maine. I mean, Maine's huge, right?
Okay.
But anyways, I don't think I put where William was from. I want to say it's Massachusetts. I'm pretty sure it's Massachusetts. So we're going to say Massachusetts. If he's not from Massachusetts, sorry, William, you're going to have to move. So, but anyways, before I show you guys this, Phil, you went to Handworks the first year they had it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Did you happen to do the Studley tool chest when it was
yes,
on display?
I did.
You did. Okay. John, did you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so you're not included on this conversation then.
I'll step out.
All right, cool. But so the Studley tool chest is, really well-known tool chest. It was made by Henry O. Studley back in the 1800s. Mr. Studley was he was the lead. I don't remember exactly what his title is, but he worked at a organ and piano company, and he was like the lead craftsman. So basically, everybody reported to Henry, and over Henry's boredom, as he manages everybody, he built this amazing tool chest. It's a wall-mounted tool chest that opens up. All the tools are nested together. I'm sure everybody who's listening to this knows exactly what it is, so I don't need to go in depth on it. But when it was here in Iowa, a number of years ago, on display, my father-in-law and I went and saw it, and one of the tools there that just absolutely fascinated me. I mean, it's full of beautiful tools. I mean, everything in there is like ebony and rosewood and, brass and bronze and ivory. And it's just gorgeous. But the one tool that I'm like, that I want one of those was the Studley mallet. Okay. There's a mallet I think it's the upper right hand corner of the tool chest. And it's an infill mallet. It's made of bronze. It's stuffed with ebony infills, has an ebony handle on it. It's gorgeous. Nobody knows who made it. Like, nobody knows the maker of it. It was either one that Henry had got from a tool manufacturer and he modified it, or he made a pattern and he had it cast. Something. Nobody really knows where it came from. But I figured it was probably it was going to be a short amount of time before somebody made a casting of it and started selling them. And that's what William Martley did. So Bill was a tool maker, Bill is a retired pattern maker is what Bill is. So he used to make patterns for foundries to do castings from. So Bill's neighbor introduced him to the Studley tool chest, showed him the Don Williams book about the Studley tool chest, and said, hey, you should try to make one of these patterns. Long story short, Bill made the pattern. A foundry down the road from him pours them, casts them out of bronze. He has done other runs with like gunmetal and white bronze, stuff like that. But mainly they're sold just with bronze. And you can buy the casting. So if you're looking at this picture here, right here is the casting as it comes from the foundry. They're sand casted, so there's definitely some roughness to the top. You get that sand texture. They mill the faces of it, so this area here is milled, and around the infill area is milled. So I got one in, and I stuffed it with ebony, because why the heck not?
Right.
So I've had a lot of people comment on that, like, oh, that's super cool. I never knew that somebody was making these. And Bill messaged me a couple of weeks ago, said, hey, I'm glad I stocked up. And it's like, oh, yeah, I'm glad I could, toss somebody like that a bone that's kind of a, little guy in the industry selling some pretty cool tools. So I think Bill is also working on a larger version, because these are just a hair over a pound before they're finished. But these castings come in from the foundry between 16 and 17 ounces, so they're about a pound a piece. Then you add the whatever you put inside of it. So I think mine's about a pound and a half. But he is going to be making a bigger one. So I had a bunch of people saying, hey, it was super cool, little write-up on that. So, yeah. So,
cool.
Yes, I would say that this issue has a lot of my influence. That sounds weird, but kind of. Like, this is what I want to see Popwood like.
Sure.
A lot of... Popwood's not going to be a magazine necessarily that somebody grabs and takes into their shop like Woodsmith. Like Woodsmith, you're taking in there because you're probably going to build a project.
Right.
You're going to use those step-by-step plans and build it. This is more of like a, it's sitting on your, next to your toilet and you're reading it. It's a story magazine. It's like, like you could, like everything we have in here, the shaker sewing counter, the plane, the tool chest, you could build it based on the dimensions in the magazine. But we are also not hand-holding them like Woodsmith, if that makes sense. It's more of a, we're expecting that somebody that's going to attempt to build one of these is going to have the know-how and knowledge to do it with a little bit of guidance. So yeah, I just talked for a long time. I'm ready for the hate mail.
You can send that hate directly to the YouTube.
That's right.
Put that in the comments there. Start a good conversation.
Yeah, please. We like the comments.
Yeah.
It's been a while for Logan. He needs his hate tank refilled.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So
it's what fuels him, really.
That's right. I did have just to keep talking because I need to get more hate mail. I did have a lot of comments on my editor letter as well, which was kind of fun.
Because as an editor, I wonder how many people actually read those.
Well, and that's something we've always talked about, and that's something we've always said. It's like, how many people really read those? So actually, the issue we're working on right now, I reduced the size of the editor letter a lot. It went from basically one full page here, like this, down to a half page because I wanted to give a little bit more insight to the contributing writers, rather than just having at the end of an article where it says, Logan Whitmer is the editor-in-chief of Popular Woodworking magazine. I wanted it to be more about the contributing writers, who's writing for us, and a little bit more background on them. So I've started including those bios into the front where the editor letter is. But this editor letter in particular was it was sparked by Becky, if you can believe it or not, because when we were filming the picnic table for the Woodsmith Shop, season 15, I had pieces standing on end, and they fell off the bench and cracked the edge of one of the pieces. And I just picked it up and kept going. And she's like, "How do you not get mad at that? Like, how do you not beat yourself up over it?" It's like, well, because I can't really do anything about it. She's like, "Well, yeah, but that piece is always going to have that crack in it." It's like, well, I can fix it, and yeah, that crack's still going to be there. But does that really matter? So this whole editor letter was about the pursuit of perfection, and there's points where perfection really matters. In woodworking, it doesn't really matter in most cases. Do you care if your tenon and mortise are a suction fit where you pull it apart and it goes pop? Doesn't really matter. As long as it fulfills its duty, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So had a lot of people that long story short, it sounded like it resonated with a lot of people. So that was fun to see.
Cool. So we'll put a link to the magazine on the show notes page, and also some of the links for some of the people that were featured there as well, so you can find out how to see more of the work that they're doing, or get one of your own mallets or whatever. So, any other updates, projects you're working on?
No, the next one I have for our next issue is that humidor. I've talked about it a couple times, so I need to stop dragging my feet and just get it done.
Yep. Yeah, it just seems like I've been in front of the computer doing more design stuff for the magazine recently, but still working on a lot of little home projects at home, and trying to clean up the garage, getting ready for the winter season that is coming. That always the hopes of maybe pulling one car in the garage. So I feel like I'm getting to that point where it's time for another wholesale clean out of what needs to stay and what needs to go. It's what's been hanging around too long. It's time to let it go. So I've been doing a lot of that in my shop lately, of trying to reclaim some space. It's mostly the kids' toys that need to go. Don't tell them.
Right. Yeah. They probably don't even know that they have them, so you can get rid of it and it's totally fine.
Yeah. Yep. I think so.
Well, we did that around here. There was a lot of tools and accessories and whatnot that we've accumulated over the last 40 years. And we've been trying more and more to get rid of stuff we just don't use or need anymore. But I got a bug in me the other day and went through a bunch of cabinets and whatever. This one got to me because we have all this stuff and it's always been in drawers, so you don't really see it. So from the outside, it's super organized. However, it's just random crap that we just had. So Logan helped me clean out, and we filled up 2 tables full of stuff, and then just sent out an email to everybody in the company, come find stuff that you want, and the rest is going to get tossed.
Go clutter up your own shop with it.
Right. Yeah. It's a clutter transfer.
And to be fair, I get it. I mean, yeah, I think everybody knows we're a magazine. We have a photo set. We had these tools. A lot of this stuff that we cleaned out was considered photo props.
Right.
Perfectly functional tools. It's just they were kept in drawers. They were kept in cabinets to keep them nice for photos. But let's be real. How many people's shop? How many people have the stickers on their hammers still? You know what I mean? Like it's that type of stuff. It's like, I understand it wanting to look nice and clean, but that's not reality.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things like, oh, don't need it anymore. I mean, if we need, or the other option is, or the other side of this dice is that if one of us does an article or one of us does a technique or something, a lot of times we bring our own stuff in for photos.
Yeah.
So, it's clean it out, get rid of it. We only need so many belt tensioning meters or torque readouts that are, this is the stuff that was in there was nuts.
Yeah. No, so that felt pretty good. And then I even did the same thing at home, going through my hardware cart and purged a bunch of stuff. Some random stuff I just recycled. Some of it I just put out here on the free table since it was already going.
So the problem is when you do that at your home shop and you put it on the free table, the kids just take it and it goes right back in.
Exactly.
Nice. So the other thing that I did is for one of the projects for season 15 of the TV show, which is going to start airing at least in Iowa and a few other places this month, next week, I believe, is a shop cart that we called the Power Tool cart. And the original plans had a series of small, shallow drawers or trays that you could pull out. And my part of the the episode was to customize it, maybe think of some other ways that you could set up this cart. And one of them was to make a router bit rack. So I did that, but the one that I have here that I'm showing on the YouTube version, and I'll put a photo on the show notes page, I laid out, because I wanted it not just for router bits, but also like router wrenches, extra collets, guide bushings, that kind of thing. So, because the bit racks that I've had were left over from another project that I don't use anymore, and it was just kind of a jumble.
Mm-hmm.
So I laid this all out on a piece of MDF and then asked Chris to see if he could CNC all the holes, which was nice because there's a lot of holes in there. And the other thing that was nice is with the CNC, he could specify a specific size so that the holes for 1/4 inch bits are just slightly larger than 1/4 of an inch so that the bits slide in easily, which is not something easy to do with drill bits unless you get like specific bits. And I wasn't going to get a number or letter bit or something like that was just larger just for this one thing. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's nice because usually you can find smaller bits within a 64th if it's a 1/4 inch, but you get up to 1/2 inch and it's just 1/2 inch, and then like you said, you have to get a specialty bit and it's really not worth it. But yeah, so that's really nice that has all the places for your accessories and stuff, because usually that gets thrown in a drawer and rolls around, or wrenches aren't easy to find. So
anyway, it's kind of fun to be able to have that and now be able to find a little bit more order in my shop there too.
So is all your routing stuff, because you don't have a full-size router table at home?
Not yet. I'm contemplating making one, but we'll see.
Okay. Is all your routing stuff going in that cart then?
Not on the pullout, no. This is more of like the wrenches, bits, that kind of thing. Because I have another in my tool chest. I have a deep drawer that I have whatever base is not on my router at the time, because I have a small Bosch Colt and a Porter Cable 690, and I have plunge bases for each of those. So whatever one is not currently being used is in that drawer. Same thing with like an edge guide, that kind of thing.
Okay. And I only ask because that's been something I've been contemplating. Is at home I have my Colt. I also have a 690. My 690 only has a plunge base. I don't have a fixed base for it. The Colt, I have the plunge base and the fixed base, but I also have it set up for the CRB7.
Oh, yeah.
From Empower Tools, and I really like that base. But I also have my router table, and I have the Woodpecker router table, and it's wide. It's very wide. It has to be 48 inches wide. It's huge. But there's a lot of storage underneath, or there's a lot of room underneath it, and I keep thinking I need to do some form of built-in storage. I'm not. I have issues with the one we have on set. Like, I like the vertical drawers on it.
Right.
For the bits. But I feel like the center section doesn't function as it should.
Okay.
Or as well as it could. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not set on that design. So I'm going to kind of start researching some router storage options for underneath the Woodpecker router table.
Okay. That's fair.
So, wanted to kind of see what you were doing with yours.
Yeah. No, so that one is just for the cutting parts of routing.
Gotcha.
So there you are.
Yeah.
All right, I think that wraps up another episode of the Shop Notes Podcast. Like I said, you can see some of the links to people and topics that we've been discussing and some photos of the things that we've been referring to. You can also watch the podcast on our YouTube channel. There you can also leave any questions, comments, or smart remarks. If you'd rather, you can email us, woodsmith@woodsmith.com. You'll find the show notes page at woodsmith.com/podcast. And you can subscribe to the podcast through all the usual channels. So I suggest that you do that and ask that you would do that, as well as give us a good rating, because it'll help us to get the Shop Notes Podcast recommended to other woodworkers like you who might enjoy it. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for another episode of the Shop Notes Podcast. Bye, everybody. This episode of the Shop Notes Podcast is brought to you by Woodsmith Plans. You'll find nearly 1,000 plans covering everything that you'd want to build. From furniture projects to gift projects, kitchen accessories, workshop projects and jigs, and more. Find your next project at woodsmithplans.com.